Joining State Representative Jackie Chan of Quincy for another Techie Talk podcast episode. We missed you last week, Jackie.
Yeah, schedules were unable to hook up last week as we are both have very busy lives. It just doesn't happen sometimes. So I did miss you that week, Joe, and happy June.
Yeah, that's right. Here we are, and still happy rainy outdoor event weather too.
Yeah, I was out at the graduation on Quincy High School on Monday, North Quincy High last night. We had brave, defined, drizzle, mist. Congratulations to all the students graduating 2025, but also congratulations and appreciation to your parents and your families and all your friends to support you. Also, the fact that it was such a drizzly, tough, raw night, especially on Monday. I mean, more kudos to everyone. They were able to get through the whole evening. And, I know that school department and Quincy Parks and Rec, I mean, they can only do so much. I mean, but they did the best to try to keep everything as dry as possible.
Yeah, I'm sure the kids didn't care. They just want their diplomas and be and be done.
Well, as I always say, I mean, this is really their day. I mean, they are entitled to being selfish for a little while. I mean, they did get through all through schooling in Quincy and managed to get through high school. They're actually the first set of kids to start freshman year outside of COVID. They're actually middle school COVID kids, and they should enjoy their moment. I mean, I understand that we really should think bigger picture, but for a few hours and one night in a stadium with people who love you, they should very much enjoy the moment and be selfish for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, but as you said, I mean, all the officers from both schools thanked their parents and their guardians and their teachers. They were very respectful, I found.
Yeah, and not like I remember every speech, but I will say that as we progress further into more graduations, I hope to be here longer for more graduations. The president's speech and the valedictorian speech largely reflects a changing generation of kids coming forward. It's not necessarily just talking about their time in high school, but they actually talk about their futures, not just today, and where they can have a role in their futures and actually our futures as part of a community and the larger society as a whole. So the theme has kind of shifted around a bit over the course of listening to these speeches. Again, I don't claim to remember every single one, but I mean, there is a pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID, and kids are impacted by the current political environment. It is reflective of their speeches, whether it's cautious optimism. At no point they're ever negative, but they want to make sure to express the fact that we have a role in this world, and it seems to be a very common theme, especially since 2022 going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So it gives you hope for the future.
Well, it does. It shows us how aware they are about what's going on around us, whether it be politics in DC, whether it be climate change, whether it be the unfortunate wars at a global level. But at the same time, though, they recognize that getting into college or getting to military service or getting to vocational school or getting to the workforce is not easy. There's a lot of challenges ahead for them. The message is always the same between the two schools, is that the challenge is there and we're ready to take it on. And that is a good attitude to have. Um, and I wish them the best. And I'm very surprised as every graduate I go to the level of maturity and great understanding they have about things happening all around us that you and I talk about pretty much on a close to week basis.
Yes, speaking of, what's happening at the State House these days?
Well, last week I missed you, so we didn't get to talk about the Cannabis Control Commission. Let's not rehash this. The Boston Globe has very thoroughly described the ineptitude of that commission, and they definitely need to do. Let's just call it what it is. We blew it up. This is beyond reform at this point. Speaker Mariano expressed his pleasure last summer about this agency. They've definitely been monitoring it. Chairman Dan Donahue from Worcester, who's the chair of the Cannabis Committee, and they had been formulating a plan during the wintertime and came to fruition this month. And I won't bore you with the intricacies of how rules are functioning, but we had a bill out of cannabis, we'll just leave it at that, and proceeded to debate it last week. And what it does is what it simply does this: it just takes away all the control of the commission away from treasurer's office, pushes into the governor's office, makes it very clear the executive director has actual authority, has the appointing authority of the chairperson, reduce the size of the commission from 5 to 3. The commissioners are not full-time staff, which is what they award to the treasurer. More clear delineation between the powers of the commissioners and the director. The director is no longer elected by the commission, which in itself is kind of crazy. You think about it. And also at the same time, trying to address our enforcement issues. We've been seeing an increase of these THC drinks to direct to sale and also in convenience stores. You may not be aware that the last cycle, big surprise, I was a little surprised by this, but the Senate, under Mitch McConnell's amendment, actually included a farm bill to allow THC drinks that belong to a very specific particulate level. The problem is that understanding these levels is not exactly easy, as I discovered, because it changes based on processing product and THC. It's very chemically involved, which I'm not going to pretend I understand my chemistry, but it's not as straightforward as people think it is. So one of the concerns we have is that, unlike alcohol, where you have the backstop with the AFT, alcohol, firearms, tobacco, because you can't move alcohol out of a facility or a federal excise stamp. So safety is assured at that stage. THC drinks actually have no federal review. They're basically a type of supplement product that you find in your convenience stores. So we do two things here. One, we share control of wholesale distribution with the ABCC to ensure that registered licensed products are moving around the state. And we were going to give DPH the ability to reveal chemically what is in our drinks, not just the THC, but what is in the drink, period, to determine its safety and whether that actually meets that federal farm standard. Right now, the entire industry is self-recognizant. Sounds similar to what we had regarding vapes. And you just got to rely on their word. There is zero government review. There's zero third-party review. There's zero you review, unless you got to go take your own drink to a lab. So this is one of those buy everywhere situations that we need to get some arms around. What the Senate's going to do, I can't speak. The Senate has not made a statement publicly about what their plan, if they have a plan regarding the Cannabis Control Commission, as well as things such as THC drinks. We'll see how it plays out from there.
That's kind of concerning because is there an age limit on who can buy THC products?
Technically, no. So we're going to tie THC products to marijuana law, 21 and above, same as alcohol and tobacco. But, as it stands now, it's Wild Wild West. It's discretion of the convenience store owner. There is no statutory, no regulatory requirement regarding purchase age, because the convenience store is not a marijuana shop. They are not licensed, same as a liquor store. And last summer, the ABCC pulled the THC drinks off the shelves of liquor stores because they're moving as a controlled product without ABCC clearance. This proposal from the House that's now sitting in the Senate will concur jurisdiction to ABCC and better review by DPH. Once in the substances, we'll have a better idea of what we should and shouldn't allow in Massachusetts.
Okay. All right. Interesting. First I've heard of that too. So what's been the reaction from the cannabis industry?
It's kind of an interesting response. I've had meetings with these folks, and believe it or not, those who are engaged in THC drinks as well as wholesalers are interested in some regulatory oversight. They recognize that there's a lot of competition out there, quickly rising. And let's be honest, not all competition means that all boats will rise. There's going to be some businesses that are not going to survive. That's the point of competition. But most importantly, product safety is very important. If you don't have confidence in the product safety, it ruins the entire industry. And all it takes is one incident to cause all kinds of problems. It's like when an E. coli event happens in a fast food chain. It creates a ripple effect in a regional level regarding whether they can trust the product.
Yeah.
So, the THC situation, given the fact it's completely Wild Wild West scenario, those who want to pursue this industry needs to have some consumer confidence. And that means that people should know what is really in a drink and verified by a third party, as well as licensed wholesalers that are distributing it. It's not coming in a manner where it just shows up at a store and you don't know where it came from.
Right. Do you know what other states might be doing about this, Jackie?
Other states are looking at this issue. I don't think anybody's really moved on this yet. The federal preemption issue is a bit of a problem because they allow it. Again, we believe the intention of Mitch McConnell. Believe it or not, it was the Republican Mitch McConnell to put this in. is that, the idea was to have hemp-based products be more normally used.
Hmm.
I don't think they thought about THC drinks with this thing
Okay.
in the Farm Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, like I said, it's a new and emerging industry, and building the plane as we're flying it, as it were.
Well, I get the folks who are supporting these products, but have you actually thought about the fact that your product actually has no review whatsoever, not just the THC, but the whole product itself?
Hmm.
And secondly, uh, is it truth in advertising what you're getting?
Yeah. This reminds me of another issue that's come up locally. I'm sure you're familiar with the issue of botulism from Botox injections at a local health spa. Does that come under your committee?
Sort of. I mean, we had an incident in Stoughton, if I remember correctly, regarding an
Yep.
unlicensed Botox facility. The license was summarily suspended and is under review at this point to most likely get the license revoked. That is under the Board of Cosmetology.
Hmm.
It's not directly in my review in the sense
Okay.
that I don't control the board, so please ask me to get your license. But I do oversee policy matters that addresses the board's administration or what we call division professional licensure or occupational licensure these days. And we've been in communication about this every time there's been incident coming on. My office reaches out as we see a news article appear to see, hey, what are you guys doing about this? So in terms of regulatory oversight, if you're a licensed cosmetology, which is where this product is pretty much used, you're going to have license suspended or revoked, or for summary suspension when the sign of your danger. If you're unlicensed and you're caught, the Division of Occupational Licensure's relevant board
Hmm.
can investigate you and refer you to the Attorney General for potential civil or criminal offenses.
Okay. Yeah. I read a story in the Globe this morning that this particular spa, the person was not a licensed esthetician. They were a certified nursing assistant, I think, and that was their only qualification.
Yeah, you have to be cosmetology licensed. So the Board
Right.
of Cosmetology can investigate. Certified Nursing System that falls under a DPH.
Yep.
So the person can be investigated as well. The Board of Health here in Quincy can also investigate. And depending on the severity of the situation, if someone was maimed or injured, if there rises to a criminal offense, obviously
Mm.
law enforcement. So there's multiple regulatory agencies as well as
Mhm.
law enforcement can intervene in that type of situation, particularly if someone has sustained serious injuries and want to press charges.
Yeah, this particular spa is in Milton, but again, it's a good reminder for folks who use that service to check their qualifications.
If you're asked to see the license, they have to show their license. Obviously, check the date on the license is the most important thing. But also at the same time, though, I mean, they have to post the health board up, and if you're very concerned about a facility, obviously you can contact the Department of Occupational Licensure, or just contact the board directly on the website. The website's going into a monster overhaul because it's so customer friendly
Hmm.
uh, that they're doing the process of a monster overhaul. But don't be afraid to reach out to your board of public health locally. Hey, I don't think this is clean. I'm very concerned about this.
Yep, absolutely. So we're still in budget mode, I guess, at the State House.
Yeah, we're in conference committee. We have on the big budget, there's a supplemental budget as the mayor's tax. It's also sitting in conference committee. We moved some smaller items. The governor ran out of money, literally, on certain smaller line items relative to early education, which we moved quickly onto our desk. And then we have the GIC situation, Group Insurance Commission for Public Employees, where 0.24, which is usually Harvard Vanguard or Harvard Pilgrim. But, I've used it forever. I still could just Harvard Insurance. We're short. We owe them money because the usage of the insurance was enormously high and didn't quite cover all the relevant payments. So things are moving around. It's just not moving very quickly.
Yeah, I read this morning there's the millionaire's tax is $3 billion. There's a surplus there as opposed to what was projected.
Yeah, we passed the surplus bill about 2.4 billion. I'm gonna say this over and over again. Don't get this optimistic about this the situation. I mean, people have 3 years to move their money out of state, so we're gonna see about 2 more years if people actually decide to stay in Massachusetts or do some tax sheltering and hiding. I think it's a bit of a naivete to say that people with big money can't figure out how to move their money to try to lower the tax burdens. It's up to the Department of Revenue to audit and investigate these type of situations. And people shouldn't count this one instance as like the norm. So obviously, we're going to enjoy the opportunity to backfill a lot of federal service cuts that already started in education. Then we're going to probably plan for more coming in the fall. So I suppose any surplus funding is welcome for now. But as I told some advocates before, we can band-aid stuff. I mean, rainy day fund is not constantly replenishing. The idea is it takes a decade plus to get to $8 billion. But, once we start band-aiding, it isn't like it replenishes at the rate of the band-aid we put on.
Being very conservative, Tacky, about this.
Economic volatility and uncertainty creates increased conservatism. And I still believe in economic cycles. I really do. And we're overdue for something happening at some point, really not related to anything in the federal level, even though the federal government can accelerate or decelerate the economy somewhat. They don't have a lot of control. Although, again, I keep thinking we have a president who wants to regulate and control economy like China so often, because I listen to talk to me. You sound like China in the way you approach your economic policy. If you actually know how China's economic policy works, you can see the similarities. That being said, I projected a recession around 2020, 2021, then COVID happened. And then, of course, everyone got stimulus money to keep the economy afloat because people feared a Great Depression occurring because of the uncertainty of the length of the pandemic. And then, then the Biden administration continued to pump more money in all industries at some level. It's supposed to put more money back in our pockets of everyone else. And then, eventually that tap's going to run dry because the administration is trying to pull it back. And it's just really kind of uncertain how this is going to play out. So you lose your job, you don't pay as much income taxes. You do pay taxes on unemployment if you qualify for unemployment. And, I have some real concerns about the deportation issues of temporary visa holders, of which many temporary visa holders actually have working permits.
Mm-hmm.
Temporary visa holders generally have 2 years. You do qualify for working permit. Many do. They really don't qualify for a lot of other benefits legally. I'm sure some people know how to skirt the system. But I mean, legally don't get a lot of government assistance, so they need to go work. There's about 500,000 people that they're going to try to revoke. Well, not try, they are going to revoke. It's not used to try. They're going to revoke 500,000 people's temporary visa statuses, even if 50% were workforce eligible in the workforce. That's 250,000 employees nationally that would be deported. The funny thing is that the talking heads and economists seem to miss that when you have a situation like that and they're now unemployed and deported, they can't collect unemployment insurance. They're not in country, which means that the unemployment figures are going to get skewed because unemployment figures are tied to unemployment applications.
Ah, okay. How are they doing in Massachusetts? Last I saw, it was hovering around 4% unemployment rate.
Yeah, it's the same on the federal level. I'm not expecting a massive shift in numbers. I do think that there's a huge economic data problem. So job openings, which is the JOLTS, is showing an increased number of openings, as well as increased first-time applicants, and also payroll numbers are slowing down according to ADP. Of course, that isn't the end of the BO, they're just samples. But unemployment came in a little lighter than estimates, and the state studied 4.2 nationally, and the state's actually just about the same amount. Indication there's a disconnect here, but the fact that there's more job openings, but employment isn't going up, and we have increased number of applications. People are staying on unemployment longer. So generally, when you see job openings open up more, it means people looking for work means that unemployment should be a bit higher.
Right.
And when I hear more first-time applicants, one would assume to be higher unemployment percentage. And when you hear people on unemployment longer than they were before, you would assume to be a higher percentage too. That's not happening. And I'm not saying I know exactly what's going on, but I think there's a lot of factors out there, especially given the challenge of the immigration, especially immigrant workforce, even temporary workers like on Cape Cod. They're not going to get any temporary workers. I mean, that's not going to show up in the unemployment numbers, but it's going to show up as in the jobs available numbers. So your macro data is all over the place because of the changing immigration policy so quickly and the massive movement of people who were in a job, who are no longer, let's ignore immigration status because job openings has nothing to do with immigration status. If there's increased openings and unemployment isn't moving, and unemployment's only people that can apply for unemployment, we always assume it's always 2% more than it is 4.2 in total unemployment. So people give up finding a job, so people have unable to work because of physical limitations, things like that. I always assume it's about 2.5% more than what we actually see because they're not going to qualify for what is really going on here. And I think it's going to take a full year for employers in particular to really feel the impact. And of course, if there's not enough workers, it trickles back down to consumers about the quality of service you're receiving.
Right. Particularly the service and hospitality industry, tourist industry. That's where a lot of those folks typically work.
Yeah, if you're a Cape Cod goer, you're going to see it this summer on the price structures because it won't be tariffs driving those prices. There'll be wage increases because they're going to have a harder time attracting people working there if they can't get outside country temporary workers, which drives a lot of the hospitality industry around the country, but especially in our area. And then, we're going to have an impact again on students. I talked to the Masters Reader Association about the impact on students regarding this policy. And this was before he started going after the student visa issue. And people don't realize it's not just college students and PhD students. It's actually also high school students. We do have high school prep schools, the nice ones such as Milton Academy, Thayer Academy. But we also have high schools here that are certified who's college preparation high schools for foreign students where their parents have a lot of money. So if you've been to the Social Plaza and you've seen some of these high schoolers with these name tags, very large lanyards on them, and there's a bus outside. There's actually one of the high school preparation schools, college prep schools that are not, part of the elite high schools or the public schools. And that's not receiving any kind of government assistance. That's 100% parent driven. And, obviously they have, a lot of money to afford to send a kid to prep school here. So, yeah, there's going to be cottage industries if the Trump administration continues regarding student visa issues going to disappear. And sure, it's a few hundred kids, let's say the Social Plaza in Braintree, but there's a few hundred kids that have disposable income.
Yep, absolutely.
So, people don't think it doesn't affect them, and you're like, hey, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It's just, you got to remember that the world's bigger than, me sitting here at my dining room table with you.
Yeah. Did I read too where the administration is specifically targeting Chinese student visas?
Yeah, it's a curious issue there because you can't figure out what's really going on because they're claiming everything's a national security issue. They're using a lot of war powers acts from the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Cold War. They're using a lot of war powers acts in a time of peace. And this is going to get very confusing. And even the war on terror doesn't actually have a country per se. they're harboring terrorists, but they're actually not a terrorist country in the direct manner. We can talk about Iran, North Korea, and others, but you got to declare war on the country, not against their agents. And that's, for example, that's the Houthis. The Houthis are an agent of the Iranians. We're not bombing Iran, we're bombing the Houthis who are their agents. We all know. So it's even then, that's not your conventional, what we consider war. And, using these security powers, it's going to be very interesting because they were never intended to be used in the peacetime situations. So the visa issues, again, coming under national security, with no evidence per se of national security. If you know your Cold War history, higher education was a way of a lot of communication between adversarial governments, but also, spies, that and, businesses, right? Both of them had spies on both sides during the Cold War. And I do know there are indeed true that there is corporate espionage equivalency, in higher education, among many countries, especially China. But they're not pointing to an actual national security problem to back up their evidence. And this is where it gets kind of itchy on the matter because, remember the drama of Colin Powell before the United Nations for the reason to invade Iraq, which turned to be completely fictional by the Bush administration because Rumsfeld wanted to go in because he wanted to finish the job from George H. Bush's term because they stopped short of taking out Saddam, which of course created a whole set of new problems as a result of us being in Iraq for like 20 years. This is kind of that situation, but they're not even faking facts. They're just doing stuff under the guise.
Hmm.
The courts are probably going to allow some of that because I think there's sufficient flexibility under law. I think the courts may not allow some of that too. I think it's kind of a jump ball based on facts and circumstances. And again, I'm a legislative guy. I don't believe in advocating legislative power. And until Congress wakes up and realize that they just gave away the store and they basically neutered it as a body and as individual legislators, they're not inclined to take any action.
Yeah, yeah, it's such an interesting scenario to watch play out at this particular time in our lives, you know.
Well, I think it's incredible they're able to utilize the law to the maximum interpretation. Again, an executive authority has always been challenging legislative authority. That is not new. The history of the country has gone on like that forever. And whether presidents are able to properly interpret the law. For example, the elimination of pennies is kind of an example of that. In the penny issue, instructs the executive branch to reduce coinage as needed. So the president determined that there is no need for pennies, hence pennies have stopped. There is
Yeah.
no minimum number of pennies to be printed. There's no minimum number of dollar of pennies to be printed. The Congress decided to not take that little micromanagement, punt it. So in theory, the president could declare zero need for coinage and eliminate all the coinage at some point.
Interesting. Hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, again, it's Congress, and I'm also a legislator too. I mean, I do a lot of regulatory stuff. Whenever you're either adjusting regulation, updating of powers or whatnot, you want sufficient flexibility for regulatory agencies, executive branch folks to execute what you need. But I've always decided that you need to at least put sufficient guidelines so you understand the intent of the legislation.
Yeah.
And so, for example, X commission may do or shall do. The X commission shall do A, B, C, D, E. But it's not the sole thing they can do. Included, but not entirely. So we always write different kinds of language to ensure that we hit all these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but also enough flexibility that you shall accomplish the enabling statute, which is generally section 1 or 2 of a bill that says, I need you to follow. This is your goal. Hence, the Cannabis Control Commission didn't apparently do any of that. Hence, we blew them up. So the legislature give, the legislature take away with. And we are rule of law people. And how Washington, D.C. responds to that? Well, I've never seen this before. And I'm not, that old, but, as you guys know, I am a student of politics. Even though I don't have a PhD, I do like to, watch. I mean, the Korean elections, I'm still trying to sort out what happened too. I mean, that was entertaining.
It's, the country's 250 years old, but it's still a work in progress.
Oh, well, when the oldest running democracies in the world, I mean, I just mentioned South Korea, they didn't have a real functioning democracy until the late 80s, early 90s. And their democracy is in crisis too. You think we got problems. They're a deeply divided nation, not just divided by political philosophy. You can call it right, left, or sideways. I don't care. Very divided political philosophies that people are locked in on. And over there's also regional political philosophy differentials. Just like in this country, they're not a monolith. And certain geographic regions have a very different approach than others. And the government investment in different regions creates people's response about how they feel about the government. So obviously, the government made a major investment in economic development. They tend to lean towards the party that provided that benefit. Those that did not receive said benefit just lean to the opposition party. And I talked a few times earlier on a podcast about how incumbent parties able to withstand challenges this year 2025 so far. However, given the unique situation of the ruling party's impeachment of the president upheld by the Supreme Court, it's a really funky process over there where there's like so many layers to impeach a president. And not surprisingly, the opposition party won the presidency and they also control the parliament currently. And this president is kind of interesting because President Lee, in this technically his third run, he lost the primary equivalent of what we call a primary, and then he lost to Yoon by less than 1%, and then now he's won in a 5-way race in a snap election, with almost 9% of the vote, while not cracking 50%. It was like 49.3, really close. But he also was an assassination attempt last year where somebody stabbed him in the neck. So as much as politics here is rough and tumble, this guy's a mayor of a major city, running for president, ran for president twice, lost, and was stabbed in the neck last year
Yeah. Yeah.
before he got his president
They're
run.
not going around.
Yeah, I mean, it's not screwing around. I mean, a former Prime Minister Abe was shot with a makeshift weapon. It was a makeshift firearm. A Colombian senator was shot as well. Is seemingly on the mend in Colombia. Mexico has had, I think, close to 50 sitting elected officials or candidates for office killed in 2024. Oh yeah, I mean, as much as things are crazy here. Other places they're straight up murdering candidates and sitting officials.
Yeah, well, there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life for sure, so there's that too.
There is that, but I mean it's a complete filter down to the lower levels in these other countries, and Korea is a first world country. It's not like a banana republic, but I mean the fact there is violence going on against the electeds, widespread it seems. It creates a whole new idea of what public service is about.
Different topic altogether. Tacky National Grid's in trouble again. It's switching people to paperless billing without telling them.
Yeah, National Grid has been a problem company since I worked in the AG's office, well past 15 years ago now, where the British still own it, and as a result, it's not a domestic company. I mean, I won't name names, but certain folks, romanticize about Mass Electric. Mass Electric is dead. And when it was domestically owned, had better response. Now that it's a foreign-owned company, it is increasingly difficult for us to get our hands around it. We need them to be sold back into the United States. And this is a British company, not like a Chinese company. It's a British company. So they also operate a whole differently in Britain, where they almost have no regulatory oversight and they control a lot of generation, including renewable power, to charge customers anything they want. Here, at least, there's some guideposts going on. And we are deregulated in Massachusetts, so National Grid can't charge you electrical charge unless you're on electrical generation, unless you're on your default / basic service. So I'm not surprised. I mean, they're doing massive cost cutting, and they attempt to do cost cutting increases their return on investment. And unfortunately, the British's goal is to milk as much money as they can out of this company.
Interesting. Okay.
Let's call it what it is, people. This isn't a domestic multinational. This is a British national company that's out to milk as much as they can. So paperless billing is cost savings for the company. But as we know, not everybody uses email, and utilities in particular is a very diverse group. For example, getting my mother, to look at her email to find her bill is not going to work. And that's assuming you actually have the emails.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was a great big assumption that backfired for sure, because as you say, there are some state rules that apply here.
Yeah, and DPUs needs to get off their duff and get this done. I mean, you've heard me say this over and over again. Do your job. Sounds like Bill Belichick, but I mean, this applies to everyone in life, you and me and everyone else. Do your job. That's always been the way I grew up. That's kind of my attitude. Very troubling when people don't. I don't care what you're doing, whether you're stocking shelves or trying to regulate National Grid. Do your job.
That's what it comes down to. Exactly. Yeah. Inflation is up, but not too much.
Yeah, CPI this morning was not that bad. I mean, came in below estimates, only 0.1% increase. However, it's pretty steady now. It's still under 3%, but it's far from 3%, particularly on core PCE, which strips out food and energy. Big driver of PCI staying low is energy prices are relatively low right now. Avian flu has passed for the moment, so air prices a little lower. But leisure travel has also dropped, which is a bad indicator for the summer, where airline tickets have started to fall. And that's an indication that it's going to be very slow down on hospitality and people spending disposable income on flying and hotels. Car industry folks are feeling the brunt. Massive amount of car sales in April, dip off in May. I suspect we continue to dip off because how many cars do you need? And appliances also a bit down too, because those people, again, very concerned about the cost of buying a new good right now, not knowing the prices are going to go down later on. So, there's all this news talking about, oh, the tariff impact. Yeah, there is a tariff impact, but you don't see it in the data set for at least 3+ months because it's
Mhm.
always backward looking. It's not forward looking. So, I think people tend to not understand, you can't predict the future, no matter how hard you think you can. And economic data, particularly, you really can't predict the future. So, is this data going to come up in the tariffs? Sure, but it's not going to show up as a concrete example of it impacts or not until we get to like September and we get to see the August numbers, which is traditionally a slow spending one for consumers.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's going to take that long for this to show up. So I mean, if you're under some, oh, no, nothing's happening. Well, okay. I mean, that's what the president's going to announce this afternoon to try to bolster public relations. Remember, this is backwards looking, and economic impact rarely just jumps off a cliff unless you have specific special scenarios. So we'll see what I'm more interested in the September number, and early July is the end of the 9-day suspension. So, maybe tariffs are back on the table, or, I'm going to do it because I'm going to say it. I got a taco trade, right? Trump always chickens out, right? And I do understand his process in the sense, take the most extreme position and work everybody to the middle. The problem is his extreme position involves like 5 different moving parts, and no one knows which one you're really talking about.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not,
Companies hate that because they need to plan. Yeah.
everybody hates that.
Yeah.
I mean, name me one person, I get it. You'll understand the constant negotiation, start at the far end and work your way back. But when you start at far end with 5 different things that are not tangentially, no way related to you, no tangent together, and you can't describe which is the real one that's the far end position that you're starting with, it becomes real problematic for anyone to understand what's going on.
Right.
And you can buckshot all you want, but you're buckshotting discussions about $1 trillion economies. We're not buckshotting trying to get a deal on a car.
Right. Yeah. That tends to cause investors to just kind of turn away, walk away, and not do anything.
It's the volatility in the market right now. I mean, people often think the stock market is, well, them 60% of the population is invested in the market in some form, whether it be 401ks, private investment through Robinhood, because if you like to do that kind of thing and take high risk, want to be a day trader. I don't advise it, but some people do that. And of course, public pensions, and whatever's left of private pension funds, as well as things like my Roth IRA and my 457. I mean, they invested in mutual funds. So 6% of the population is invested in some form of the market, whether you realize it or not. And that includes bonds, by the way. Your
Mhm.
bonds and stock market are tied together. So you think, well, I have bonds and I'm part of the stock market. No, actually you are. If you're trying to buy new bonds by the secondary market or go into the auctions, when the government puts out the auctions, I mean, stock market and bond market are intricate, but the bond
Mhm.
market dictates how the stock market's going to go. So, he's playing with our future in a different way. I mean, the debt scares me now because once you cross 100% of GDP debt, that is frightening. But we are a giant economy, and the belief we can grow out of it is a bit of a myth. But at the same time, though, messing around with the stock market, not driven by normal economic cycles and normal economic behavior, driven by government influence, which again sounds very familiar to some other places. Does affect you. And like, oh, when stocks have bounced back since April. Yeah, but you also lost 2 months worth of potential growth and compounding of your stocks.
Yeah, but we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, no one talking about. You just lost time.
Right.
When you're closing on a retirement, like if you cross the 60 barrier, you just lost 2 months of potential growth.
Yes, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like how I look at it. You lost time. This was like a normal recession because, let's say, financial markets fell, or consumer spending just hit a halt, or whatever other reasons. Unemployment goes up to 9%, and the market will go down, and other things go down. But that's a cycle. It's relatively normal in the history of the United States economy. This isn't normal. Government should not be dictating the movement of the economy.
Well, I was just going to say it's self-imposed. It's not happening organically.
Yeah. So you maybe think you're now net neutral. No, you just lost 2 months or so of like the ability to grow your
Mhm.
pensions.
Yep, I just went from, steak to ramen noodles for supper during retirement.
I certainly hope you don't find yourself that position unless you truly love ramen noodles. I would
Only,
recommend.
only as a side dish.
Well, you had high blood pressure, probably not.
That's right. No, there's way too much salt in this.
Lime sodium. But no, again, I mean, no, nothing against people choosing their meals. But again, I think people tend to, tune it out a bit. And you got the things going on in LA. You got all these lawsuits. And, I mentioned in the beginning about 500,000 temporary workers being deported, temporary visa holders, which are essentially temporary workers, and no temporary workers coming in. It does affect you. If
Mhm.
you go on vacation in the Cape, and like I said, you find these high wage prices, well, you have a labor shortage, that's what happens.
Are we going to see you in the Flag Day parade this year, Techie?
I have every intention to go watching the Flag Day parade, despite the fact we're not exactly optimistic about the weather forecast. This is a rain to shine event. Starts at the Firestone this year, actually Walter Hannon Parkway intersection on Hancock Street, and it's going to finish, I believe, at Marymount Park, which is
Mhm.
at Stadium, Hancock and Southern Artery. For those who may not know, I live 15 minutes from Veterans Stadium by foot, so I generally peel off at the end to walk home. And I do have a beautiful view of fireworks from my house because I live on the other side of Blacks Creek. So I do hope to see folks on Saturday, and knowing exactly what we're expecting.
Yes, I know it's iffy, but the mayor said to me this morning, unless it's a hurricane, it's a go. So bring your rain gear.
Yeah, I'll have my raincoat, my cowboy fedora, leather rain resistant hat, and my umbrella, and probably not be wearing my good shoes. I'll most likely be wearing my black sneakers because I'd rather ruin those than ruin my good shoes. Um, and besides, if you're looking at my footwear, clearly you're not paying attention to the parade.
And folks can watch it right here live on QATV if they don't want to brave the elements.
Yep, I gotta remember where you are so I can wave to the camera.
Right out in front of Adams Field. So yeah, please do. How do we get a hold of you, Techie?
617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the office number. Tackey.chan at inmatehouse.gov, tackey.chan at inmatehouse.gov. I'm getting swamped by testimony email right now. It is drowning me. As committee chair, I mean, I'm drowning. I mean, like I see 100 new emails when I wake up. So be patient with me on this one. I got to sort through all this email. At Tacky Chan is the X account. State Representative Tacky Chan is the Facebook account. You can see my comings and goings. For example, I had a very busy weekend. You can see some photos of places I've been. State tackichan.org is obviously our resource page. People use that as a contact page to reach me as well. MAlegislature.gov, MAlegislature.gov. Please make an account there. I encourage it. You can track legislation and watch our hearings and see who's there and who's not. And then, of course, you and I get together on an average of every week or two and talk about the topics of the day, or maybe nothing interesting at all. We have no idea too.
That's the nature of a podcast. It's just open-ended.
No idea what's going to happen before we start. So you never know what you're going to get. So, I mean, you want to get tuned in to find out what we're going to say.
That's right. That's the lure. That's the draw. Thanks a lot, Techie.
Take care, Joe.